Hey guys, it's Mandy. Welcome to my channel. So back in November, we purchased a foreclosure property, and I made a video then walking you through that house and showing you what it looked like after we purchased it. This video is the update. I'm going to show you what the house looks like now that we've finished renovations and share with you every dollar that we spent on those renovations. I had originally estimated that we were going to spend $10,000 on a new roof and then an additional $10,000 doing everything else the house needed to get it ready to be rented. Well, I was way off base. We spent quite a bit more than that. And some of you anticipated that that would be the case. In the comments, you were like, I think you're going to spend more than $20,000 on a complete renovation on that house. And you guys were right, and I was wrong. So, the first half of the video, just to be completely honest with you, I shot a really low quality, terrible video of the house after we were finished with renovations. That was 2 months ago. So this house has already been rented out. The tenant moved in May 1st. So there's really not much more I can do. Like, I shot the video, it's horrible. That's kind of why it's taken so long to get this video posted, is because I just didn't give myself much to work with. So it's been really hard to make this video because all I have is this horrible quality video tour of the house. I'm just not good at shooting video tours of houses. But that's all I have to work with. So we're gonna watch the video and I'm gonna comment on it, and then after that I'm gonna take you through all the repair costs. So I'll do that pretty quickly. I will do my best to not make this video take all day. And actually, if you just want to skip the house tour, I think the repairs is going to be more informative, where all the money went into this property. So here's the video of the house, and if you want to skip this part, completely fine. Okay, so here's the house, and if you didn't watch the first video, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It is pretty big. The first floor is 1,660 square feet, and then it does have a basement. The basement has the laundry room and like another kind of like I guess you would use it as like storage, or you could use it as a game room or a movie room. It's not super nice, but it's not bad. But the basement is an additional 750 square feet. It does have a pretty big back deck, and then it does have this fenced-in area over here. It's small, but tenants really like that if they have a pet. They really like to have a fenced-in space to put their dog. Out here, we didn't really do much work. I did paint all these doors. I painted the storage room doors and then the front door. The front door's not really the shade of red I wanted. It's a little more purpley, but it does look a lot better than it originally did. So the first thing you're going to notice is that I did not paint the paneling upstairs. I had originally planned to, but just me painting by myself, it would have added a whole nother month to the renovation time for this property. And honestly, the paneling's in good condition. There aren't holes in it. It wouldn't have increased the rent. So I just left it. It's okay. If I was going to flip the property, I would for sure paint the paneling, but it's fine for a rental property and for my area. I did replace the carpet in this master bedroom and in the living room. And then this bathroom is one of the biggest changes. So this bathroom was just a mess originally. I did replace 2 tile in the bathroom. Luckily, we didn't have to replace all the tile because there was actually extra tile downstairs in the basement. And honestly, it looked like a lot bigger problem than it was. So it looks really awful. But what I think had happened were just 2 tiles had broken, and there's actually 2 layers of plywood, well, particle board actually, underneath this bathroom. And you can go up underneath the house and you can see it's all in good condition. None of it has water damage or anything like that. But where the 2 tiles were broken, I think because people were getting out of the bathtub, that particle board underneath the tiles was getting wet. And it really doesn't take much water exposure for particle board to swell up and just turn to sawdust. So it kind of like just disintegrated there. Well, I cut out that layer of particle board, put in a new piece of plywood, and then replaced those 2 tiles. And I think it looks really good, actually. I replaced the light fixture in here, but I kept the vanity and the mirror and everything that I could. And then replaced this tile surround. We replaced it with this flex stone surround. And the bathtub, I was able to just clean it up real good, and it looks great, but it's the original bathtub. Did put in a new toilet. And then the main thing is we just stripped off all the wallpaper and painted the walls in there. Okay, so heading over to bedroom number 2, we did not actually do anything in this bedroom. In fact, I didn't even replace the carpet in here. This is the original carpet that came with the house. It's actually in pretty good condition. It is old, but the people who lived here, I don't even think they were really using these other 2 bedrooms. Actually, it was just an older gentleman by himself, and I don't think he was using this portion of the house much at all. Here's bathroom number 2. I took the wallpaper out of here, painted it, put in a new light fixture, put up some shelves, put in a new toilet. And then the bathtub, luckily, all I did was just recaulk it. Well, we did put in a new valve and a new trim kit, but I just caulked it. We were able to go in from the paneling and replace the shower valve. We didn't have to go in through the tile side. So this is the 3rd bedroom, and just like bedroom number 2, I really didn't do anything in here. Paneling is the same, carpet is the same. Here's the dining room. So in the dining room and in the sunroom, we replaced the flooring. So it has vinyl sheet flooring, and that was $2 a square foot. It's really cheap. I like it because it's easy to install and easy to pull out and replace in between tenants. So here's the kitchen. I didn't really have to do a lot in here, just some cleaning, and I replaced all the appliances and the kitchen faucet. But besides that, really didn't have to do much in the kitchen. So underneath the kitchen sink, I find that this happens a lot in these houses, that there's either been like an old water leak or it just looks gross. And if it's in really bad condition, I go ahead and replace the inside of that cabinet. But this house, it was intact. There wasn't anything like structurally wrong with it. It just looked kind of old and gross. So I cleaned it really well and I painted it with a primer. And then I went to Walmart and I bought those vinyl stick-on tiles and I put them under here and they look really nice. If they hold up and they don't start unsticking, then I would definitely do this again. I think it worked out really well. So far, this is one of the best fixes for this that I've come up with. So I'm hoping that it works well because it does look really nice. Here's the sunroom. I did paint in here and I did repair one spot in the ceiling where the roof had been leaking in here. I didn't end up doing anything with this built-in except for just cleaning it up. For renting, it didn't make sense for me to do anything with it. If I was going to flip the property, maybe it would have made sense to do something different with that. I know it's like a very specific kind of built-in, and I'm not sure what the tenants will be able to use it for, but I don't know, they could put books there or something. There used to be very bright red carpet on these stairs. I pulled out all that carpet and then pulled out all the staples and repaired the holes that were in the steps and then just polished them. Maybe I should have put like a polyurethane coat on them, but I didn't. I just left them as is. So down here in the basement, I think is one of the biggest differences with the house. It used to have a really like mildewy smell and mildewy carpet down here. I ripped out all the carpet and cleaned the floors really well, did a concrete etcher on them, then put a floor primer down, and then I did 2 layers of paint. And I think the paint looks really nice. If I were to do it again, I do not think I would go with a tan, even though I really like the look of the tan because it does seem to show dirt really easily. I think I would stay with a gray. It would just look really nice and clean, and I don't think it would show dirt as well. In the laundry room area, I wanted it to look nice and bright and white and clean, so I did paint the paneling just in this one little section. It's the only section of paneling I painted in this huge giant house full of paneling, but I think it looks really nice and I'm glad that I painted the paneling in this section. We also installed this new utility sink. It did have an old utility sink that just didn't look very nice. This one's a lot nicer, and it does have a little bit of cabinet space where they can put their laundry detergent or whatever. So the dehumidifier, I actually put a dehumidifier in every single one of my properties that has a basement, and I asked the tenants to run them about once a week. I don't know that they always do, but I think for the most part they do. I mean, the tenants don't want their house to be musty and mildewy either. So here's the outside, and I actually filmed this video just a few days before the tenants moved in, so I had a little bit of cleaning up to do still out here. But you can see the plywood ceiling that we added, and we got all the junk picked up out here. Nothing spectacular, but it's just functional and a whole lot nicer than it used to be. So that was the house tour. Now let me take you through the numbers on this property. We purchased the house for $45,424. That is closing costs and everything. Then we put a metal roof on the house, which was $10,500. That's more expensive than any roof we've ever paid for before, including metal roofs. The reason being that, one, coronavirus, so materials were just a little bit harder to find and a little bit more expensive. Number two, this roof had been leaking for a while, so there were several places where the plywood needed replaced. And even when plywood's not ridiculously high, it was starting to it was pretty high back in January when we replaced this roof. But even when plywood's not ridiculously high, it still adds quite a bit of cost to a roof when you have to replace a bunch of plywood. And then number three is that this house actually had 3 layers of shingles. That is not up to code in anywhere that I know of. Normally, you can only layer shingles over one old layer. So if there's already 2 layers on the house, you have to pull them off. I would always recommend that if you're getting a new roof, who's ever doing it, tear off the old shingles, even if there's only 1 layer. It will be a lot cheaper if they're not going to tear off the old layers, but it will also, your new roof will not last as long. And that is especially true if you're getting metal. Next, we paid $4,000 to have the trees trimmed around this property. And that is one of the places where we went over budget. I was estimating that it would be about $1,000, $1,500 to have these trees trimmed. It ended up being a lot more. And part of that was just, it was a lot more work than I was thinking it was going to be. So we actually had 9 trees cut down. Some of them were small, and then we had several others trimmed. It was so bad that the neighbors were coming to me and complaining that they thought my house was a fire hazard. So it needed to be done. It was expensive, but this is a house we're going to keep for a long time. I wanted, not to have to worry about trimming these trees again in the future. Then I paid $375 to have the drywall repaired in the living room ceiling. I didn't do it myself just because it was such a big job, and it would have been really noticeable if it didn't turn out well. And also because it needed to be textured, and I'm just not very good at texturing. I paid $2,081 to put new flooring in the house. That is not new flooring in the whole house. I kept what I could. So this is just new carpet in the living room and in the master bedroom, and new vinyl sheet flooring in the dining room and in the sunroom. The appliances were $1,428. That's a new refrigerator and a new dishwasher. I also replaced the stove, but my grandma actually gave me her old stove for free. She had an electric stove but wanted a gas stove, so she gave me her old electric stove. When we bought the house, the tile surround in the master bathroom was falling apart. What I think happened is usually in those tile surrounds, there's a soap dish. I think the soap dish had broken off, which it does sometimes, and then nobody fixed it, so water was getting in the hole behind there, and it made a bigger hole where all the tiles were falling off. And I was hoping that we could just repair that section, and then I would still have a tile surround in the bathroom. But when my tile guy finally came to look at it, he was like, yeah, this would be better just putting a surround in. It's not like we're really gonna have to rip out all the tile and just replace everything if you want to do tile. So I ordered a surround, and I actually ordered a flex stone surround instead of a fiberglass surround. I just really don't like fiberglass surrounds, and I wanted to try out the Flexstone surround. The Flexstone surround is really nice. It does seem more like luxurious than a fiberglass surround, but it was quite expensive. I think it was right under $700 for the surround. And then for the labor to install the surround, it was another $700. So altogether, I spent $1,458 purchasing the surround and having it installed. I think for that price, although I am happy with the Flexstone surround, I think I would rather just have redone the tile surround. I really like tile surrounds. I think they hold up really well. I spent $705 on plumbing. So my plumber replaced both the shower valves and the trim kits in the bathrooms. And then he replaced the P-trap under one of the bathroom sinks and the hose bib outside. And that $705 counts all the material and the labor. Plumbing in my area is the one thing that we have going for us. It's pretty stinking cheap, and our plumbers are awesome. I can't find anyone else to do anything, but we have really good plumbers. I paid someone for 4 days of labor. I paid him $25 an hour. On the first 2 days, he pressure washed the house, and he had his own pressure washer and everything. I basically paid him $200 to pressure wash the house, and I paid for the bleach and the supplies to do that. And then the second day, he helped me install that plywood ceiling. So we just cut them to fit, measured, cut, and then screwed them up there. And took out the old insulation and put in new insulation. So he helped me do that. The last thing that I paid someone else to do, and this is where we went way over budget, but I had to have the septic tank replaced. Now, when I bought this house, I assumed that it needed a new septic tank. So you may be wondering, well, why would I have gone over budget then if I was already budgeting for this? I wasn't actually budgeting to replace the septic tank though. Like, I knew it needed a new one. I just didn't think I was going to have to replace it right away. So let me explain that a little bit better. In this town, every single time that we buy a property, I assume it needs a new septic tank. Almost all of these properties were built either in the late 60s or the early 70s. There was like a big boom, and everybody was building vacation homes in our town. And then at some point, everyone moved away and nobody wanted to even own a house in our town. That's kind of changing. A lot of people are moving to the area now. But that doesn't change the fact that all of these houses are 50 years old. And unless the septic tank has been replaced very recently, it probably has a 50-year-old metal septic tank that has completely rotted through at this point. I am in the process of slowly replacing every single septic tank on all of our rental properties. So I assumed that this property would need a new septic tank. I was just going to add it to the end of the list and replace it either next year or maybe even the year after, just depending on when we get to it. But as we were cleaning up the yard and cutting down the trees and raking the leaves, we found a big hole in the ground. And that hole was actually where the septic tank had collapsed in, which will happen when your metal septic tank has completely rotted through and the ground above it's heavy and then it collapses down on the septic tank. A normal septic tank replacement is about $3,000. This tank was actually in a really bad spot. It was underneath the heat pump and it was like really, really, really deep in the ground, which I'm not an expert. I don't know why that's really a problem, but that's not good and it makes it a lot harder to dig up and to find to pump it out. So we pumped out the hole that was in the ground and then put more dirt on top and just collapsed that in all the way. And we relocated the septic tank to a better area where we could get to it and where it wasn't underneath the air conditioner. We had to replace the piping from the house to the septic tank, and we also had to replace the distribution box because it was under a gigantic tree and full of tree roots, and there wasn't going to be a way to get to it without cutting down a humongous pine tree. So we replaced that as well. And instead of having a $3,000 septic tank replacement, I had a $6,140 septic tank replacement. So that is everything that I paid other people to do, but most of the work inside the house I did myself. And the materials that I bought to do that with came out to $2,309. So this is everything from cleaning supplies and trash bags and light bulbs to toilets, the dehumidifier, the utility sink down in the basement, the plywood that we used to put that ceiling outside underneath the sunroom, new doorknobs, and paint was actually a big chunk of that. I probably spent $700 on paint and paintbrushes and painting supplies. Oh, and another significant expense in there was the dumpster. The dumpster was a little under $300. I ripped out all the carpet in the house, threw that in there, all that trash that was behind the house, threw that in the dumpster. So at this point, we have now spent $75,220 on the house. But that is not the end of it, because we actually have holding costs associated with keeping the house vacant. So we're paying utilities and we're paying insurance and we're paying property taxes this whole time, and the house is not generating any money. This house was vacant from December to May. I didn't turn the water on for the first half of that. I didn't turn the water on until like halfway through, and then we really didn't use very much water. The total water bills came out to be $78. Then the electricity, so I had that turned on from day one. And for those 5 months, my electric bill came out to be $669, which is absolutely ridiculous considering that nobody was living there and the heat was on 55 most of the time. The reason that the electric bill was so high was because I did not realize the breaker was off for the heat pump. I turned on all the breakers inside of the house, and then we really didn't start working on that house until like the third month that we had it. So the first 2 months, it just sat there vacant while I was working on another house. And then even once I did start working on the house, I was back and forth a lot, and I just didn't realize that the heat pump wasn't kicking on. The thermostat never said emergency heat or auxiliary heat or anything like that. So I just didn't realize, I wasn't paying enough attention to realize that the heat pump wasn't kicking on, and I did not know that there was a separate breaker outside. Once I figured out that the heat pump wasn't working, and I was like, that doesn't make sense because this thing's almost brand new. I investigated a little bit further and I found out that the breaker was shut off. So I flipped the breaker on, and then the electric bill went from like $288 down to $67, and then the following month it was $65. So I basically burned several $100s there, just not realizing that the heat pump had a separate breaker. The property taxes for this house are right under $1,000. So for 5 months, it came out to be $412 that we spent in taxes. And then for the property insurance, it was like almost exactly $300 for 5 months. So that brings our the total amount of money that we have in this property to $76,679, which is a lot more than I had originally estimated, but it's okay. If I were to sell this house today, especially if I would paint the paneling inside, I could easily sell this house for $120,000. It's a nice house, it's a big house, it's a good location. I'm really happy with this house, and we had a large buffer in the amount that we could spend to repair it. So it's okay. It didn't get us into any trouble or anything, but that's why you should always be careful and anticipate spending more than you think it's going to cost. It seems like no matter how well you know your expenses, it seems like prices are just always going up and you always run into something that you didn't expect. Now, as far as the rent goes on this house, it has actually been rented since May 1st, but so far the tenants have been great, and I have rented the property for $800 a month. Now, I know you guys are tired of me saying this because I'm supposed to be a business person and a go-getter and trying to make as much money as I can, but I could rent this property for $900 a month. I could. It's a big house. There is almost no competition in our town. It's worth $900 a month. But these tenants have been waiting on this house since January. They actually applied for my last house that was open, and they were qualifying, they were great, but the guy who's actually renting that house, he said he wanted it first, he applied first, he was also a great qualifying tenant, and he has been fantastic. So they have been waiting since January for another property to open up, and I told them back in January that I did have this one coming open. I wasn't sure when it would come open, but I'd probably rent it for around $800. If I hadn't have already told them that, then I probably would have went at least $850 on the house. But I told them 800. I think they're going to be great tenants, so I'm just going to keep it at the 800. I may not have squeezed every dollar out of the property that I could, but I think this house is going to be a great long-term investment, whether we keep it as a rental forever or if one day we decide to sell it in the future. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have questions, because I know I went through all this kind of quickly, if you have questions, ask them down in the comments and I will try my best to reply to everybody. If you have any suggestions for future videos, put those down as well. I'm always love to know your guys' suggestions and what you want to see. I'll see you next time. Bye!